Good afternoon. Today is January 11, 2013, and this is the house of Arthur Denchfield, aka Arturos Rex on Twitter.com, Arturos Rex on YouTube.com, Justice for You Today at Yahoo.com, and Justice for You Today at Hotmail.com, and so on and so forth. Arthur for Chivalry at Match.com, and so on. This is a house in Miami, and this is our Mercator map that Dad had made in the late 1930s before he got married. It's a Mercator map of the world. It's a rug map, and we've been walking over this Mercator map of all the nations for decades and decades, and many, many things have happened in the world since the late 1930s to 2013. And one of the more recent events are the huge fires in Australia, which the news has reported. They are apocalyptic, biblical fires, and I believe in one of our last YouTube videos, we vacuum cleaned Australia. Anyway, what we're going to do now for a few moments here is we're going to try vacuum clean this rug again. But before we do that, we want to do something else as we face Our Lady of Fatima statue. Today is the 63rd birthday of our youngest brother, Robert Stewart Denchfield, and that's his picture over there, way over to the left. That's his high school graduation picture. It's as it were, he's looking at the American flag in mourning in front of the eagle, and the document underneath his picture is from the United States Naval Institute, which was given to him as a consequence of his work for the Institute in the many essays that he wrote about the U.S. Navy, naval warfare, this, that, and the other. And that was given to him on March 1st, 2004, and he passed away on March 4, 2008. He smoked too much, and his heart gave out, etc. And so we want to make this is a video especially paying our respects for our youngest brother, one of the horsemen of the apocalypse, as some people like to say. And but just keep in mind that the eagle in Latin is aquila, okay? Now, the feast day of January 11th is Saint Paulinus, Patriarch of Aquileia. Aquileia, that's Aquileia, the eagle. And this is the story of Saint Paulinus, and this is today's saint, the saint of the day. And I'll read this quickly. Saint Paulinus was born about 726 on a country farm near Friuli, Italy. He spent his youth tilling the soil for his struggling family, but also found time to engage in scholarly pursuits. So adept did he become at these pursuits that he gained the reputation as a grammarian and professor, and was invited by Charlemagne to come to his court around 776 A.D. Here he met the noted Alcuin of York, and the two became fast friends. In 1787, the emperor appointed him Patriarch of Aquileia, near his birthplace in northern Italy, and he gave great luster to that church by his outstanding zeal, solid piety, and extraordinary talents. He attended all the great councils which were convoked in his day, and he himself called a synod at Friuli in 791, or 796 inside brackets, to combat the errors then circulating against the mystery of the Incarnation. He even wrote 2 tracts against the more serious of these errors, adoptionism. Maintained that Christ as man is only the adoptive Son of God. He also wrote hymns, poems, and other works. When Pepin conquered the Avars, St. Paulinus immediately dispatched missionaries to convert these pagans who were now accessible to the faith. However, he vigorously condemned the practice then in vogue of baptizing uninstructed converts or imposing the faith by force on unwilling ones. On January 11, 804, the earthly life of this holy man came to an end. Prayer. God, you made St. Paulinus an outstanding exemplar of divine love and the faith that conquers the world, and added him to the roll of saintly pastors. Grant by his intercession that we may persevere in faith and love and become sharers of his glory. Amen. And that was the feast day. That's St. Paulinus here, Patriarch of Aquileia, January 11. We're going to put the music now of the Assumption of Blessed Virgin Mary Ukrainian Catholic Church, of their divine liturgy of yesteryear. We're now going to put this on. We'll have to rearrange this. We are now, but before we do the vacuum cleaning, we want to read this statement, the citation that the United States Naval Institute gave to my youngest brother. Robert Stewart Denchfield is a member of the United States Naval Institute, the mission of which is the advancement of professional, literary, and scientific knowledge in the naval and maritime services, and the advancement of the knowledge of sea power, given on the 1st of March 2004. Now we're vacuum cleaning again, and we ask Almighty God through the act, through transference, to purify all of Asia, Asian portion of Russia, South and North Korea, the Philippines, Japan, Indonesia, New Zealand, Australia, India, China, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Israel, Iraq, Iran, the African continent, Madagascar, the Indian Ocean, Western Europe, Greenland, which is part of Denmark, and all of South America, the Atlantic Ocean, and the Pacific Ocean, and Hawaii, and the United States of America from east to west, west to east, Canada, and so on. We ask Almighty God to give the Australians, who are currently suffering tremendous fires, the grace to understand the reason for this chastisement. That's just one of many, many chastisements that are taking place all over the world. Now we're going to move this, and we want to sit on the other side of the camera here. And let's see, Robert is way over to the left, and that should do it. We still have our Christmas tree up. We have it up in honor of my youngest brother. I mean, it's also up in the Catholic churches still. I mean, they haven't taken the creche away yet in most Catholic churches. And Robert Stewart, he liked to play Santa Claus. He was very much into the Christmas spirit. And so when Christmas comes around, we all think about him. And so here we go, and we'll place it on right now, this like this. Turn the light on, the camera here went out. So, this is a more recent picture of my youngest brother, Robert. He looks just like Bob Beckel from the Five on Fox News, with his wife and 2 children. And this was taken, let's see, April 2005. It was taken about almost 3 years before he passed on. And to his credit, Robert, well, one of the things he did, he played football in high school, and he graduated when he was 17, and he went to the Merchant Marine Academy in Piney Point, Maryland, and he was drafted by his teachers to represent represent the academy in the boxing match. And at the age of 17, he defeated a 19-year-old American from Job Corps in I believe it was a technical knockout. And because of that unexpected defeat, he was mugged that night in his bunk by a whole group of people, including his drill instructor, who found that outcome totally not in keeping with their expectations. And the young teen, the 19-year-old teen whom he defeated, was none other than George Foreman himself, before Foreman went pro. At least that's the story that I recall. And he went out, he came back and he went to University of Miami, and he got his degree in English. But he also was on the Merchant Marine, and he went to Vietnam a number of times, and he was on cargo ships delivering ammunition for the Vietnam War. And needless to say, his views on politics and philosophy and religion were somewhat at variance with mine. Whereas I took my mentors and those who inspired me were the likes of Plinio Correa de Rivera, for example here, and St. Thomas Aquinas, and heroes of the Marine Corps heroes and the like, etc., Crusaders. Timothy Leary was one of his gurus. I mean, he really looked up to Timothy Leary, and at one point I told him, I said, you know, you should really sue that man for all the harm he did to tens of thousands of university students in his time, because of his evil influence as far as psychedelic drugs and the like were concerned. At any rate, Robert was a patriot, and he was a writer, and whenever he wrote a letter to the editor, when I was around, he'd ask me for a favor and say, Arthur, why don't you call the editor and tell him to publish my letter? I said, Robert, listen, you have to let the chips fall where they may, and if the letter is published, it's because of the merits of your letter, and not because I'm going to lean on anybody. At any rate, here he is, my dear brother, Robert Stewart. He was the youngest of the 4 Denchfield boys. We were all born in Brazil. He was born in 1950 on January 11, and when he was less than 1 year old, he had a penchant for closing the doors in the house where we lived by the beach, and he locked everybody out, including the nursemaid and the cook. My father was at work downtown Recife, and so my mother had to enlist the services of my younger brother, Alan O'Brien, who had to strip down to his underwear to squeeze through a slight opening in the window to get in the house in order to unlock the door. This was perhaps this means something. We like to think that Robert is very much involved in some mystical, mysterious way of the Lord with anything that has to do with the sea. Maritime affairs, maritime accidents, tragedies, the Costa Concordia, and the like. Now that was 15 minutes. My 15 minutes are up. I'll give myself another 10 minutes. We were going to talk about this Man of the Year cover of Time magazine. Remember, in our earlier video, we put the time machine gear on our heads, and we were reading into the past on the basis of the cover of Time magazine. But we don't want to do that now, because This is a more solemn occasion, an occasion to remember a great brother who was my youngest brother. And we used to play on the beaches of Recife. Whenever we could, we used to just run across the highway and swim and run in the sand and run after our dog, or our dogs would run after us. And it was a lot of fun and great, rich memories. And of course then, as we all got older, we got separated because of the schools that we went to and the education and so on and so forth. What we'd like to read to you is something from the Fatima Crusader, the last issue of the Fatima Crusader that we received just the other day, and it has to do with the symbolism of European Union flag is Marian. The representatives of the Fatima Apostolate, including, of course, Father Nicholas Gruner, they were welcomed by the European Union Parliament in October of last year, and these two parliamentarians gave speeches about Our Lady of Fatima's request for the consecration of Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, and you can find that in the links that we will provide to you below. But here's something that's interesting. This is the symbol. This is the symbol of the European Union. It's a blue field with 12 stars surrounding the blue field. Now, you won't be told this. You will not find this in American history books, I can assure you. Below is a published report excuse me, of October 22nd, 2012, one day before the introduction of a resolution asking the European Union Parliament to encourage Pope Benedict XVI to consecrate Russia as requested by Our Lady of Fatima. As you can see from the following article, the Pilgrim Virgin statue's arrival at the EU Parliament on October 23rd had been widely publicized by RAI, that's Italian radio television. The Italian National TV Network of Italy sent a camera crew on October 23rd to record the Pilgrim Virgin's entrance into the EU Parliament building. Below, this well-known reporter connects the reason for Our Lady's visit with the Marian symbolism of the European Union flag. Excuse me. And of course, this is Our Lady of Fatima statue, and Our Lady, the Most Holy Mother of Jesus, forms part of the revelation of St. John the Evangelist, chapter 12, the beginning of chapter 12 of the book of Revelation. And here's what the article says. Marian devotion versus Christianophobia. Our Lady of Fatima comes to Strasbourg. The 12 stars on the EU flag are in homage to her, and yet this will be her first, quote, visit, unquote, to the political headquarters of the EU. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., the statue of the Virgin Mary will be brought to the cathedral of the city that symbolizes European technocracy by a group of pilgrims from all across the continent. The statue is also expected to come past the European Parliament building. Lorenzo Fontana and Mario Borghezio said the arrival of the statue of Our Lady of Fatima in Strasbourg is a, quote, unique event, unquote. Quote, few people know that the symbol of unified Europe has exquisitely Marian origins, as the European Union's official flag proves with its 12 stars with the Virgin Mary's blue and white colors, unquote. Quote, unfortunately, the two Italian Northern League MPs said Europe has deviated dangerously from the symbol's original source of inspiration, veering in a different direction to benefit interests that have little to do with those of our people and with the Christian values the vast majority of Europeans uphold, unquote. Fontana and Borghezio presented a written statement in support of the request which Our Lady of Fatima became a bearer of in order to save Europe and the world and ensure peace and prosperity. Father Nicholas Gruner, founder of the Fatima Center, a non-profit organization, presented the proposal to the European Parliament. Mario Mauro, leader of the Italian People of Freedom Party, the PDL, one of the parties that form part of the European People's Party, EPP, stressed that the EU flag has 12 golden stars that form a circle set against a blue backdrop. The number of stars has nothing to do with the number of EU states, but is an ancient numeric symbol that stands for harmony and solidarity. A competition was held in order to choose the flag, and French Catholic designer Arsène Heitz won. The meaning of the flag symbolism can be found in an image of Marian devotion which appears in the 12th chapter of the book of Apocalypse. Quote, "A huge sign became visible in the sky, the figure of a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet and a crown of 12 stars upon her head," unquote. The president of the competition commission was a Belgian Jew who had converted to Catholicism and was acutely sensitive to the biblical symbolism of the number 12. In ancient symbology, this number stood for completeness and perfection. The 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 months of the year, the 12 apostles, the 12 tables of the Roman law. Heitz was inspired by the miraculous medal. That's what we're wearing right here, the miraculous medal on top of the medal of St. Benedict. Heitz was inspired by the miraculous medal he wore around his neck, a medal named after an apparition of the Virgin Mary to St. Catherine Labouré in 1830. It was the Virgin Mary who told the nun to have 12 stars struck on the medal, in representation of the stars and the crown worn by the woman in the book of Revelation. St. Bernadette Soubirous also had a necklace made of tin and string around her neck when the Virgin Mary appeared to her on the 11th of February, 1858, dressed in white and blue. Arsène Heitz did not reveal the symbol's biblical origin until later on, but claimed the number 12 was meant to symbolize ancient wisdom. This interpretation stuck, and the number was confirmed in the Constitutional Treaty. So the European flag has a powerful Christian and Marian significance. And we're going to have a link about this. www.fatima.org is the main link of the Fatima Crusade Center. This is my favorite part, when I poke at the generals and the admirals of the U.S. military, both active and retired and reserve. You generals and admirals, you colonels, majors and captains, NCOs of the U.S. Army, U.S. Marine Corps, U.S. Navy, U.S. Air Force, U.S. Coast Guard, you all, including myself, we took an oath. We took a solemn oath to defend the U.S. Constitution from all enemies, domestic and foreign. What are you doing about the domestic enemies in Washington, D.C.? Who are these domestic enemies? They are domestic enemies that are ripping apart the U.S. Constitution by laws and regulations and restrictions on commerce, on the development of energy independence, etc., 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 ad nauseum. Shame on you for not getting off your duff since 2008 and removing this cause, this huge offense against the U.S. Constitution. We have said before and we say now, the U.S. military should rise up, and this is not only the active members who've taken the solemn oath, but all the veterans who have retired and have returned from Iraq and Afghanistan and all parts of the world. They should rise up as one and say no to the enemies, the current enemies of the U.S. Constitution, who are communist and socialist in Washington, D.C., inside the White House, in the U.S. Congress, and the U.S. Senate. And we ask our brother, we pray for his soul daily. We believe that God is using him in a mighty way. His name in the Boys from Brazil picture that we sent all over the world for a number of years is Deneb. He's Alpha Cygnus. Deneb the star, Alpha Cygnus. Each of us have a star above our heads, and his is the swan. And we ask God to use our youngest brother to create tremendous turmoil and destruction in those nations that have spat in the face of the Almighty through their unholy laws. Unholy laws that have legalized abortion and same-sex marriage and other such evils. And meanwhile, we say to you, generals and admirals and colonels and majors and captains and non-commissioned officers in all the branches of the U.S. military, shame on you for not getting off your duffs and taking this country back by force. All that's happening now is a lot of talk and based on a lot of lies. And you can go to worldnetdaily.com, you can go to newsmax.com, you can go to obamasrealfather.com. You can listen to the nightly newscast of Sean Hannity and others. Rush Limbaugh, Laura Ingraham, Monica Crowley, and so on and so forth. To their great credit and the great credit of many others in the United States, the information so far is flowing freely. But we say to you, generals and admirals and the like, all you veterans of all the services, there's a new ism on the horizon. We call it Obamanism. What is Obamanism? Obamanism is a combination of communism, socialism, radical Islam, gross mendacity, Saul Alinsky, rules for radicals, all wrapped into one. And the projection of a person's ID on the basis of a lie. Time magazine named Barack Hussein Obama Man of the Year. And yet Time magazine refuses to tell the truth about where Obama was really born. He was born in Kenya. His grandmother witnessed his birth. His real father was Frank Marshall Davis of Hawaii. But his putative father was Obama Sr., who happened to be a graduate student in Harvard. And it was convenient for him to be the father, and it gave Obama Jr. A story to tell. We ask you, you generals and admirals and others in the military, to save this country from communism. The military saved Brazil from communism in 1964, thanks to the work of the Brazilian Society for the Defense of Tradition, Family, and Property, a national rosary crusade that mobilized millions, tens of millions of people against the communism that was taking over that country from 60 to 64. And the military also saved Chile from communism in 1973, after Allende had taken over that country with the help of the Catholic Church in Chile in 1970. And now communism is solidifying its position through Barack Hussein Obama, who's a Trojan horse. He was chosen to take over this country and do what he's doing. He's destroying America, just as David Limbaugh so accurately depicted in his book, The Great Destroyer. And there's so many, many books about this. Michelle Malkin, HotAir.com, TheBlaze.com, Glenn Beck TV, all these outlets, they explain with facts and numbers and incidents and accurate testimonials something that Time magazine refuses to do. Now, Claire Booth Luce and her husband, Mr. Luce, who founded Time magazine, they are ashamed of Time magazine for the lies, the whitewashing of what's happening here. I mean, of course, Time made Hitler Man of the Year, I believe, at one point. And so, I mean, it's no surprise that Obama's Man of the Year at this time. However, we feel that the Man of the Year should really be somebody like Patrick J. Buchanan. Yes, sir. Or Jose Farah, the founder of WorldNetDaily.com. or Bishop Gassis of Sudan. I mean, there are lots of heroes and moral figures that are far, far superior to Barack Hussein Obama, believe me. And time did the world and itself a huge disservice by making him Man of the Year. Shame on you, time. And now my alarm is working again. My 25 minutes are up, and I have to go. Robert, I pray for you daily, and I ask you to pray for me, and I hope we meet in heaven. And I have very fond memories of you when we were together in Brazil, and then when we were together here in the United States. And of course, you left behind a wife, a widow, and 2 children. And whenever I see Bob Beckel on the 5, Robert, that reminds me of you. He looks just like you. And I just can't believe the uncanny resemblance. And the fact is, Bob Beckel, he loves Christmas, and he loves Christmas lights just like you did. And I don't know if he's ever played Santa Claus, but goodness gracious. It seems like we all have a duplicate somewhere in the world. At any rate, I have to go. God bless America. And you generals and you admirals, you can still do your job. You can still defend. You took that solemn oath to defend the U.S. Constitution against all domestic and foreign enemies. Do your job. And we ask the Pope to do his job, to consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary this year, 2013. Otherwise, God is going to use Russia to punish the world. Yes, through nuclear missiles. That's right. Annihilation of nations is going to come from Russia. And that probably includes the United States. Why should we want to be annihilated by an enemy that has been designated by God to punish the world? I mean, that's what is going to happen unless the Pope obeys God's 1929 request. And we have links to that too. Again, Robert Stewart Denchfield, we salute you on your 63rd birthday. And we're sorry we didn't spend more time with you on this earth. And I hope to see you in heaven, brother. And meanwhile, you pray for me. I know you can't pray for yourself, but you can pray for all of us down here, Carl Christian and Alan O'Brien, and pray for this country. Because this country is going to hell in the handbasket. And it's happening faster and faster and faster. It's a scandal. Well, God bless America.